In Mark chapter 2, we read of a very interesting passage and interesting incident. This involves a paralytic and his friends. The friends of the paralyzed man actually dismantled the roof of somebody else's house where Jesus was ministering amongst a large crowd. The reason they dismantled the roof was to lower their friend with his bed so that he may gain access to Jesus in the midst of that crowd. A pretty bizarre plan, isn't it? A risky plan as well. I mean, just imagining dismantling somebody else's roof, that is as crazy as it can be. And second, the risk of lowering their friend who's already paralyzed on a bed, what if the ropes broke, right? And thirdly, what if Jesus wasn't in the mood to heal actually? But despite the impracticality and improbability and the craziness of their plan, the friends of this man went ahead with their plan. Long story short, the man who was paralyzed was healed. The man who was immobile became mobile. The man who was lowered in a bed after the healing actually carried his bed and walked out. Amazing, isn't it? In Mark chapter 2 and verse 5, that same passage, I find a very interesting verse there. And the verse goes on something like this. When Jesus saw their faith, he said to the man, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Let me say that again. When Jesus saw their faith, and I ask myself this question, is my faith visible? Is my faith seen? I can think of a couple of other incidents in the Bible where faith was visible, where faith was seen. The Bible has so many such incidents, but I want to just zone in on two other incidents. In Matthew 9, we read of this woman who had this issue of blood for several years. She had visited several physicians, but to no avail. But she woke up to the fact and she said, "I'm going to make my faith visible." And she came up with this almost daring plan to reach out and touch the hem of Jesus' garment. And therefore she pushes herself through a crowded street and she breaks the taboo, because the taboo was that a lady should not be out in a street full of men, especially in the condition that she was. But she didn't care about taboo. She didn't care about what people would think. She said, "I'm going to make my faith visible." She reached out, touched the hem of Jesus' garment, and she instantaneously receives a healing. And for Jesus to tell her, "Woman, go, your faith has made you well." Another incident that comes to my mind where faith was made visible was an incident concerning Jesus and the centurion. Remember the centurion? He had a servant who was very ill, fatally ill. And he comes to Jesus and pleads for Jesus to heal his servant who's sick. And Jesus reciprocates. Jesus says, "Shall I come to your house and heal your servant?" To which the centurion says, "Lord, I'm a man of authority. I understand authority. You don't need to come. Just speak the word and my servant will be healed." And I'm paraphrasing this part where Jesus says something like this, "I have never seen such great faith." Again, let's go back to that question. Is my faith passive? Is your faith passive? Is it secretive or is it visible? You see, a man who was paralyzed received this healing. A woman with an issue of blood for several years was healed immediately. The centurion's servant who was almost gone, fatally ill, instantaneously received his healing. All because someone decided to make their faith visible. A faith that's visible catches the attention of God. A faith that's visible takes action. A faith that's visible is completely dependent on God. It's not independent of God, it's completely dependent of God. Is your faith visible? The story is said of an African village which for several years had not received rain. And all the water bodies, the lakes, the ponds were parched. There was no water. Animals were dying. The carcasses of animals were all around. And in desperation, the leadership of the village called all the villagers and said, "We're going to have a prayer meeting this evening. And we're going to seek God and ask God to intervene and send us rain." So sure enough, that evening, the entire village gathered together to seek God. But there was one little boy who stood out. Because this little boy didn't come empty-handed like everybody else. He came carrying an umbrella. To which people around him said, "Hey, why are you carrying an umbrella?" And he said, "If we are going to pray for rain, we need to expect rain. And I came prepared with an umbrella because I know it's going to rain." You see, that little boy and his umbrella was a sign that he made his faith visible. So let me ask you, is your faith visible? Make it visible because it catches the attention of God. Thank you for watching Word in Brief. This is Rajiv signing off. As always, I would encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You'll find content on faith and leadership. God bless you.